and players mobbing.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jayson Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Big Three NBA podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis. I know I look different. Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn. We're back.
We don't look different.
I was like, I just need to address it. It is the same person, even though I look completely different. Yes, let's get into the Celtics. I'm being a clown.
You see how she started things off about her, Gary? You see that, right?
Because I just need to make sure the people have questions sometimes, and I want to make sure I preemptively answer them.
Kwani, they know it's you. Hair, no hair, they know it's you.
Not no hair. I always have hair. Don't get it twisted now.
I'm just saying. They know it's you.
All right. Well, I appreciate that y'all know it's me. Let's get into the Celtics. They're riding the high, winning 9 straight games. They were just at home, finally back at home last night Tuesday night against the Sixers. How do we feel about the Celtics right now? Just off the top. Let's just get into that.
They look good. I mean, they obviously they've been winning all season long, but they look like whenever they get ready to just put the smack down on you, they can do it. Philadelphia made a little bit of a surge, got it within 2 points, and the next thing you know, they getting smashed badly. And it wasn't just a one-man show. Tatum, I thought, was really good in the game, but I thought lots of different guys. Jaylen Brown, I thought, was really good throughout. And this is the Celtics that I think everyone is afraid of, that team that at any given moment can just absolutely annihilate you. And Philadelphia, that score was kind of indicative of how that game was played. The Celtics, they picked when they were ready to take over in the fourth quarter, and it just wasn't a game when they decided to lock in. So
I thought the Celtics, were impressive in the sense of learning how to win a different way. Obviously, Nick Nurse is a very good coach. Has faced the Celtics probably more times than any other coach, maybe besides Eric Spoelstra, in the last 4 or 5 years. And remember, in the bubble, he had that trapping press or whatever, and really neutralized and went at Kemba Walker, if you remember that, in the bubble, and kind of neutralized him, and it kind of was like the beginning of the end for Kemba in Boston when he did that. And so he's a really bright coach, and he came at a way, was like, listen, we're not letting them shoot threes. We're just not going to let them shoot threes. They were 2 for 11 in the first half, 3 for 11 in the second half. But they were able to win by 18 points from free throw line, being efficient, attacking the paint, 64 points in the paint. So I thought they were very efficient. Other than the shooting the three, they were 5 for 22. I mean, they had not had as few as 5 threes since, I want to say, December 21, and the 22 attempts was the lowest since January 21. So we're talking about 3 years, right? 2.5, 3 years on those numbers. So I thought they just figured out a way to win. Now, you can say Philadelphia was shorthanded, no Embiid. Really, Tyrese Maxey was the only one playing. I mean, Tobias Harris was just terrible as usual. Just
terrible. Just terrible.
A lot of shots. So if he gets it going and other guys, it's a very competitive game. And it was 91-89. But I just thought the Celtics won without basically hitting 3-pointers. I mean, they hit 3 in the second half, 2 in the first half, and that's not unlike the Celtics. The Celtics took 2 3-pointers in the second quarter. I mean, that's just unlike them. They had to do it a different way because that's what the game mandated, and they did it, and they were able to pull away for a win. Now, are they playing their best basketball this season? I think they can be better, but they're also getting it done. They beat the Knicks. They beat the Bulls last week. They're beating them. They're covering the spread for you bettors. They're taking care of business. So we'll see how the next couple of games go. Dallas, Golden State, Cleveland, and Denver. So the 4 tough ones coming up in Phoenix. So the next 5 are tough, but I think they're playing good ball and they're figuring out other ways to win besides the 3. They're figuring out other ways that they need to be challenged because the playoffs, they're going to be challenged by Nick Nurse or Eric Spoelstra or Doc Rivers or JB Bickerstaff, whoever. They're gonna throw some haymakers at the Celtics, and the Celtics better be ready.
So numbers wise, they're the best team in the league right now. But to your point, there is always room for improvement. What exactly would you like to see them continue to build upon, especially with these next few games?
For me, just be more consistent, not turn the ball over as much. They had too many turnovers against the 76ers. And that's the one thing, you can't have 6, 7 turnovers from Jalen or, 5 or 6 from Jayson. And just be more efficient. The stretches where you're letting teams come back into the game or runs, put teams away. But I think defensively they're solid. I think they killed the 76ers on the boards, 56-28. I mean, that's just they're the number 1 rebounding team in the NBA now. So that shows you something. I mean, this is in addition to, leading the league in 3-pointers and offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. They're also number 1 in rebounding. But I would like to see just more overall consistency. Make it some easy nights. Put away some teams early, and they'll be challenged. Dallas is going to really challenge them with Luka and Kyrie. And the Warriors. The Warriors might be struggling, but Steph and Clay are going to play their best games. And we know Draymond's going to act a fool. He's going to play his best game.
I'm ready.
So, that Sunday game is going to be a challenge. So when teams challenge you, punch back and try to pull away, make it a little bit easier on yourself in terms of being more consistent. But other than that, I mean, I don't see some glaring weaknesses. Offensive rebounding, they need to cut down on the Knicks stayed in the game by second chance points, offensive rebounds, that type of thing, the little things.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see them continue to find different ways to find success. Because I think once you get to the playoffs, there's no one-size-fits-all way that you're going to win night in, night out. You're going to have to mix things up a little bit. And the more they show the ability to do that and win games doing that, the tougher it is for opponents to game plan against them because they then force you to look at a lot of different ways that you have to contend with the Celtics. And that is to the Celtics' benefit because when you get out there on the floor, all of a sudden they have more data and analysis and things to think about than they may have had if you didn't show the ability to beat them without taking a lot of threes. If you show the ability to beat them, even though, maybe Tatum only plays 25 minutes one game and you get your bench plays large, they're on the floor for a significant amount of time, even though the game really wasn't that blown out. It was actually still a game. They need to show, I think, different sides of who they are so that they become comfortable with those different sides and just, again, pull it out of that tool bag of talent when it is called upon in the playoffs.
Hello everyone, this is Sherrod Blakely, part of the CLNS Media Network, and I wanted to tell you about one of our friends, Prize Picks. It's the largest DFS, that's daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Prize Picks is really simple to play. You can make your picks, submit your entries, and do this in less than 60 seconds. Yes, that's right, less than 60 seconds. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Who doesn't love Taco Tuesday? Every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Prize Picks also offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account as we count down these final weeks until the NBA playoffs start. As a longtime fantasy league player myself, Prize Picks is the perfect what's next to satisfy my fantasy league itch. You want into? Here's what you have to do. First, you got to go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. So, that being said, you get a chance to pick more, you can pick less. It's that easy.
So moving forward and looking ahead, you mentioned the game that they have coming up, but just looking at the East and the landscape right now, obviously they're still the number 1 seed. But again, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Miami, whoever the wild card teams could end up being, who do you guys think is the biggest threat to the Celtics at this point in the season?
Miami. I'm going to go with Miami, and here's why. Cleveland is playing great basketball, but I'm not sure there's much room for them to grow beyond the way they're playing now. And if this is the best version of Cleveland that we'll see, which I think it is, I still think the Celtics, even if they're not playing their A game, I still think the Celtics A-B+B game is better than Cleveland right now in their A game. So they're off the to me, I'm not considering them. Milwaukee has some, I think, structural issues that no amount of Doc Rivers' Jedi mind tricks is going to fix. Dame Lillard ain't playing no defense. That's just not going to change. And the Celtics are one of those teams that will feast upon your weak link at that end of the floor. Dame is going to have to spend a decent amount of time guarding Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown. I don't like his chances defensively. Now, obviously, he's a phenomenal talent at the other end of the floor, but the problem for him is he's dealing with some phenomenal defenders also who are going to make his life as a scorer harder than he's used to. He's used to having maybe one guy, that he's got to deal with, and once he can get past him and put his imprint on that matchup, he's good. But you got Tatum you got to worry about. You got Drew Holiday you got to worry about. You got Derek White you got to worry about. So he's going to have problems in the series against Celtics. Now, Miami, here's the thing. Terry Rozier has not played great basketball, but I think the closer we get to the postseason, the closer he's going to become to being comfortable in that system and being a difference maker. Because the way that team is structured, on paper, you're saying they're not really in the same class as the Celtics. But what they're going to do is what they always do. They're going to junk up the game. They're going to find ways to get you playing their brand of basketball. And that's why when I said earlier about the Celtics finding different ways to win between now and the playoffs, that's the type of team that you're going to have to figure out ways to win. And it's not necessarily going to be you knocking down the 3 ball. It's not necessarily going to be Tatum going off for 40. You might have to win a game where you get 60, 70 points on twos and maybe 15 or 18 points on threes. You're going to have to find ways to beat that team in ways that may not necessarily play to what your strengths are. And that, to me, makes them a nervous and a dangerous team because there's no guarantee you're going to find that pivot spot, that sweet spot that you can shift into. Do I think the Celtics will beat them in the best of 7? Yeah, but they're going to make you work way harder than I think any other team in the East.
Yeah, I agree with Sherrod. The Heat are starting to play
Say
better.
that again?
Well, I know, huh? I know.
See, I wasn't going to say nothing, but Kwani, Curly Q Kwani got me on that one.
Curly Q Kwani. Wow,
Curly Q
I like that.
Wow. The Heat are starting to play better basketball. They're on the West Coast road trip. They've already won at Sacramento and at Portland, and I know they got Denver on Thursday. That'll be an interesting game. And they're playing without Tyler Hero. Jimmy Butler was suspended for a game. They still won that. So the Heat are finding ways to navigate exactly what the Heat do. They're not dead. And then the East is so shaky right now that the Heat are creeping up. The Sixers are slipping. The Knicks are not healthy. They're slipping. Chicago and Atlanta, Trey's out.
Yeah.
The Bulls are shaky. The Magic are so inconsistent. Remember, we thought the Magic would be a real contender maybe for a top 4 seed, and they have slipped most of the season, most of the last, few months. The Celtics are the only team without any real problems, right? So, and I said the Cavs are playing well, but like Sherrod said, I do think they're peaking. I don't know if they're capable of winning a 7-game series against Milwaukee or Boston or even the Knicks, right? I don't know. I think they'll win a first round series. I'm not sure about the next series. So I'd say the Miami Heat because they're going to get healthier. They're going to find a way to muck up the game, like Sherrod said. Caleb Martin is going to turn to Kobe again, and the Celtics better be ready for that. And that's the they better be ready because they're in the river. We all know they're going to play in the playoffs again. I was talking to Anthony Chang from Miami Herald. Good guy on the Heat beat, and we both say we all know these two teams will see each other in the playoffs. It's just fate. It's just how it's going to go. There's going to be no perfect road for the Celtics championship than going through Miami is going to be one of those teams. You probably think Miami, and you probably think Milwaukee. I don't know how it's going to work, but you got to think those two teams are going to be in their way. And Miami's a team that's they have played banged up all year, but miraculously they're going to be healthy when the playoffs get here because that's what they do. Jimmy Butler started to play Jimmy Butler style basketball. They're going to get back Tyler Hero in a couple of games. Jaime Jaquez, all rookie team guy. Bam Adebayo, still one of the best centers in the league. So they're to be feared to me. I think the Celtics got to figure out a way because they know Spoelstra's going to come up with some ways. And even though the Celtics and they still haven't figured out a way how to guard Porzingis, but I guarantee you by the time that playoff series comes around, they're going to have some quirky defense against Porzingis. So that's who I think the Celtics need to look out for. And everybody else has got the problems. Cleveland, I have faith in. New York's got to get healthy. Philly just looks like, even though if they get Embiid back, let's say by the end of the season, are they going to be ready? Is Embiid going to really put in and be 100% by then? Or the Sixers going to say, you know what, Joel, just you got too much of an investment in you. Just wait till next season and get completely healthy. I just don't see him suddenly coming off knee surgery and turning into Shaq in the playoffs and just carrying his team straight from 2-3 months off. I just don't see that.
I get
so. The road for the Celtics, if you look at the Eastern Conference playoffs, it's pretty much laid out like the teams. Now, the team to look out for that could sneak in a playing spot is the Toronto Raptors. Okay. I watched them beat Indiana the other night, and they made a lot of moves, and there's guys on there. You're like, damn, they playing for the Raptors?
Yeah.
Our friend Kelly Olynyk, obviously Scotty Barnes, and then Bruce Brown, and they got a bunch of just mixed pieces. But now they have kind of Gary Trent Jr., as we know, has been there. The kid from Utah Jazz, I don't even want to pronounce his name, gave the Celtics fits last year, came over with Olynyk in the trade with the Jazz. Like, they've got some players, and they're 4 games back of the play-in spot. And I think they're sort of like, what the hell? We might as well try to go for this thing because you got to think Brooklyn is not going to make a run. But Toronto's a team to look out for. But if you're the Celtics, it's either going to be in the first round, Toronto, Atlanta, Chicago. You could think maybe Philadelphia if they slip, maybe Orlando, because remember the Hawks without Trae Young. What are they going to be without Trae Young for a while?
4 weeks, right?
Yeah. He's
reevaluating.
Had surgery on his hand.
Yeah.
So, Celtic fans, I know you. The regular season can never be boring, and I know the Celtics are likely to clinch number 1 seed, but look at, the play-in could be something to watch because obviously the Celtics will be playing one of those teams in the first round, and you don't want one of those teams to take a chunk out of you. You want to be able to take care of business. And we haven't talked about the Indiana Pacers, who have been really up and down too. Remember, Indiana has already played the Celtics 5 times. And they've been up and down too. So you're going to get one of those up and down teams in the first round, and then maybe those Miami Heat in the second round.
Well, hopefully you do get an up and down team and can understand how to use that momentum. But obviously that's still not a long ways to go, but a few months to go. But right now, what's really building is the momentum for Tatum's MVP campaign. We've talked about it over the last few weeks about the fact that he is an MVP candidate, but of course it still takes a little more work for him to stand out in this actual season. And so Missoula, Perk, they've given him support. Got Draymond Green that's also rooting for him. But what do you two think right now he needs to do? And it seems like since we last spoke about it, he has some of the things you two have mentioned. But what do you think he needs to continue to do to break into that conversation and be legitimately considered?
Well, the thing about Tatum is that when you look at the guys who won MVP recently, there's been something that they did during that stretch that really they weren't just playing well, they were playing like historically well. Like they were doing things that at that position or at that team or that franchise you hadn't seen before. For Tatum, I think winning alone is not going to get it done. Tatum has to do something significantly special, go on a tear where he's averaging like 30 and 10. Where he has like 7, 8, 9 games where he's doing that and they're winning. Because the thing that people are going to come back to is if Tatum starts putting up those ridiculous type numbers, that's going to resonate more than someone else doing that, because people are going to be like, damn, he's playing with Porzingis. He's playing with D. White. He's playing with Drew Holiday. There's a lot of mouths to feed. And if he is making sure everyone else is eating good and he's eating even greater than he has in the past, that might elevate him in the conversation. But truth be told, this year, I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough to break through that top 3. I think he's going to be top 5 Tatum the rest of the season. And the other thing he has going against him, and again, I'm curious what Gary's thoughts are on this. It feels as though Tatum is judged by a different metric than some of these other cats. I mean, people talk about Tatum and just his numbers and his numbers are good, but there's this argument that they say you should be about winning, and Tatum has done that. And yet when it comes to MVP, it's like, well, we really want to see the numbers. That's why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, putting up big numbers. And Oklahoma City is having a great year. But if we're being honest and real, they're like a 3 to 4 game losing streak from dropping all the way down to like 4 or 5 in the West. It's that tight, that compact. Tatum, meanwhile, has put up, really good numbers, and his team is continuing to put more and more distance between them and the rest of the league. And yet it feels as though him not being a consensus top 3 MVP candidate, something feels wrong about that when the guy is the best player on the best team that's putting more and more distance between themselves and the rest of the league.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think Jayson is going to need, so the Celtics have a lot of, signature, big-time national TV games coming up. Dallas on Friday, Golden State on Sunday, Cleveland on Tuesday, just picked up by TNT. Next Thursday at Denver, next Saturday at Phoenix. Okay, all big-time games, national TV. Jayson needs to show out in those games, just straight up on the national TV audience. He needs to outplay Luka. He needs to outplay Jokic. He needs to outplay Donovan Mitchell. He needs to outplay Curry. Like, he needs to be that guy. And that's what's going to get him on the MVP press release. And I think, to me, it's great that he's having a nice year. I think his numbers are a little down because the Celtics are deeper. I don't think he's having a worst year statistically. It's just not as many shot attempts. His three-point percentage is up. But I just think he needs to have some signature games, a game that's just like, I'm taking – boys, jump on my back. I'm taking us to the promised land. Is that winning at Denver? That might be where he goes for 42 points at Denver and they get a dub at Ball Arena. Or is that beating KD and Bradley Beal, his buddy, and Devin Booker at Phoenix a couple of nights later on Saturday night ABC? That might be what they have to do. Tatum's got to show out in these national games. And the schedule gets softer after that. So him doing that against Detroit or Washington or Charlotte or Atlanta ain't going to really do the trick. It's going to be these showcase games over the next couple of weeks that the Celtics have. They got 2 games against Milwaukee. Show out again. Like, Tatum's going to have to do that. Because I think, is he being judged off the 22 finals? Probably, I think there's a little fatigue of like, yeah, we're tired of this guy. Like this guy, he ain't led his team to a championship. Neither is Luka, neither is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but Shai's the new kid on the block. He's the new name in Oklahoma City for the first time. Last year they made the play, and this year they're a legit contender in the West. So he has been the central figure of that rebuild. Tatum has been the central figure of the Celtics rebuild, but it's been 4 or 5 years now. So I just think there might be a little Tatum fatigue. I think people were a little disappointed at his performance in the finals, 21 points. Like, he was terrible from the 2-point line. He couldn't get to the rim and he wasn't finishing. Like, just a bad series. Jalen was the best Celtic in that series. So I think there's this level of like, yeah, Tatum, you're good. You're really good. But are you elite? Are you top 5? Are you top 3? Are you one of the best players in the league every night? That's what he has to prove. And he's got a lineup of players and teams he's facing over the next 10 days that he can show out, and really take off and kick off his MVP. Because right now, the voters, I'm sure the media voters are just starting to figure out, okay, let me figure out who's, somebody I'm thinking about for MVP, Rookie of the Year. Okay, it's going to be Holmgren or Wemby. Most Improved, is it going to be Maxey or Kobe White from Chicago Bulls? Like, they're starting to put in mind, like who's Defensive Player of the Year? Is it Rudy Gobert? Is he running away with the award? All these, who's all NBA? Like, we're all starting to kind of put it together a little bit with about 20, 25 games left. So Tatum still has a shot, and it's wide open.
Yeah.
Embiid's not going to win it. Okay, so it's back down to Luka, Jokic, and probably Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, and it could be a wild card here, Donovan Mitchell. If you want to do the Ant-Man, because Minnesota's played well and had a good year, you could throw him in there. But to me, Jayson still has a chance, but he's got to show out in these games. Friday's national, Sunday's national, Tuesday's national, Thursday's national, Saturday, 5 consecutive national TV games. And they go out west. Show out west. When you got Denver, you got Phoenix, you got Portland, you got Utah. Show out in those 2 games against Milwaukee, right? Show out against that home game against the Knicks. Like, show out against the toughest competition, and I think he'll increase his chances to where he's on the same level as SGA, Jokic, and Luka. Because right now he's not. Because those guys are putting up these big 50-point games at times, or Jokic's putting up these crazy triple 32 points, 16 rebounds, 16 assists against the Warriors the other night. Like what's he do? That's crazy numbers. Tatum is going 27, 10, and 8. Things like that. Which is great. Good stuff, but he needs a signature games or a few signature games.
No, I understand that. And to your point about the national audience, and I think that's the biggest slack that fans give the voting, the system, when it comes to MVP votes and all those awards, because a lot of times reporters may not be held accountable to make sure that they're watching every team play at least once or twice and making sure that they have enough data to really make a legitimate choice. But I agree with what Sherrod said earlier. I think the goalpost, and that's what Draymond Green said. He said the goalpost continues to change for Jayson Tatum. The Celtics are 7.5 games ahead in the league right now, and yet that's still not considered enough because it's still about individual accolades, even though MVP should still, I think, reflect what you contribute to your team despite the numbers. But I'm not the league.
No, but you have value, Kwani. Curly Q, Kwani. You good. You good. Your perspective is valued.
Thank you.
Stop it, Gary.
No, but I was essentially agreeing with you guys. I think those are really good points. But overall, you kind of said this, Gary, but what's one game that you guys have circled over the next few matchups that they have before we close out? Or what should fans probably pay the most attention to? I can read the schedule for you guys if you need and see what they have coming up.
They have
Oh, you have it.
You go ahead, Kwani.
Yeah, no, I have the Mavericks, Warriors, Cavs, Nuggets, Suns. Gary said this earlier.
Yeah, I would say the Golden State game, because it doesn't matter in terms of, whether you're first in the East or anything like that, but it feels like that there's a certain demonic exorcism that they need to get out of the system that Golden State brings. That seems to be that for whatever reason, and this is as good a time as you're ever going to get to absolutely lay the wicked hard smackdown on them. They're not a very good team now. They've got great players, but they're not now Chris Paul's return, that obviously changed the calculation a little bit, but you still should be able to beat this team. And so to me, that's one of those games that it may not matter if in the grand scheme of wins and losses, but I think from a psychological standpoint, from just an emotional standpoint, putting that team to bed is a very good thing for this team from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah, the game I'm looking forward to, I mean, it's two. The Dallas game, I just think will be fun. Kyrie coming back to Boston, Luka, the Mavericks, and then the Denver game at Denver. I think that's a real challenge. The first, they go to Cleveland, but the first game of that West Coast trip, TNT, the altitude, a team that beat them back in Boston, I think those are the two games. Obviously, the Golden State game, like Sherrod said, it's going to be a fun, entertaining game. We all know those Warriors are going to figure out a way to make it a very competitive game. They're not going to lay down. We all know Klay's going to hit 5 or 6 threes. Steph's going to hit 7 or 8. Draymond's going to be agitating people. It still might not be enough. We don't know. But don't think that the Warriors are going to play and lay down. They're going to play well. And so I think, though, that Friday night game against the Dallas Mavericks and next Thursday at Denver, I think are the two games I'm looking forward to. And then, but they're all fun. The Cleveland game, the Cavaliers are going to, it's a chance for the Celtics. The Celtics' magic number, I believe, to clinch the number 1 seed is 18, which seems like a lot, but you beat Cleveland, that's 2 games you can pick up in the magic number, and you make things easier on yourself clinching that number 1 seed. So if they just keep winning and they get that Cleveland game, that's a monumental game. That's like 2 games for them. So all of them are fun. All of them are good games. I've seen the schedule gets a little softer. I said, then they go after Phoenix, they go to Portland and then Utah or whatever. And then I know they get a series of home games. But then I know that Milwaukee's coming up. But I think the Dallas game and that Denver game.
All right. Well, those are the games you all, if you're listening, watching, should probably keep a closer eye on. But of course, we appreciate all of the people who support the Big 3 NBA podcast. Until next week, for Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back.